What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Yours Truly podcast. I'm your host, Christian Baxter, and today we have in the Yours Truly virtual studio, Mr. Free Rilian. Free Rilian, if you're in this little corner of the internet and you're on X, you are probably, or at least in the very core of this little corner of the internet, you'll be recognizing Free Rilian's handle from X, along with being on other people's streams in these here parts of the internet. I would encourage anybody to go and give him a follow on X. He is a witty poster and engages with. He's really been engaging in this recent pre-post liberal post-war consensus conversation over on X, and having conversations there with Nate from Grail Country and others, Phlebas, Matt C. So if you're into those kind of conversations, check him out. And I'm really looking forward to kind of doing some proper rando conversation with him today and getting to know him better face to face here on the Yours Truly podcast. So without any further delay, I give you Free Rilian. And don't forget, I guess with delay, like, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, become a channel member. Membership link in the description. Help support the channel financially, keep this thing going. And so without any further delay, I give you Free Rilian. Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud. And we're rolling. All right. So can I say your full name on here, or at least your first name? You've used your first name.
Yeah, that's fine. At this point, the anon thing is just more of for performative art. So yeah, I said it in the intro that you're Free Rilian over on X. You're very much worth a follow if you're into this corner of the internet. You have a lot of wit. You're kind of dialed in on this current conversation post-war. So that's been kind of thing. What were you just saying? Like right before we hit record, you said something about Nick or Anon. Was that all you wanted to say? Was just, at this point, kind of, I'm good with my name. Yeah, no, I made, I didn't know if I wanted to be myself or not. Like when I signed up for Discord, like years and years ago. So I chose Free Rilian from the silver chair, Narnia. People might get the reference, but yeah, I have no desire for anonymity. I'm just rolling with it at this point. So at this point, like I said, it's just performance art.
Fun. Well, Nick, Mr. Free Rilian, I think I messaged you like February about trying to get together, and then I kind of fell off, something like that. And then I humbly asked if you'd come back and talk, and you said, yeah, man, we can do this. But what's your story? We can do, I think it unlocks a lot of great things with Paul's question on tell me about the house you grew up in or the home you grew up in. I think that's a great place to start. And then also just like how you got into this space.
Oh, that's a great question. So let's see. I grew up in an obscure Midwest town in central Illinois. First town named after Abraham Lincoln. It was not only while he was still alive, it was while he was just a lawyer. He wasn't even president. Yeah. So like deep American lore here in this town, as you'll see occasionally on my Twitter posts or X posts. Yep. But let's see. I grew up with both sets of grandparents in town, most aunts, uncles, and cousins very close. Like first 5 years of my life. My uncle and my two cousins literally right next door. And then, one set of grandparents a mile away, the other set of grandparents a mile the other way. Which is interesting hearing, all these stories and all the discussion about the breakdown in family and tribes and all that stuff. And it's like, guys, I grew up in it. And I had it all. And it wasn't all great, as anyone who's had all that knows. And that's not to say, therefore, it's not the answer. It's more to say, things like whatever we're talking about with what's wrong in the air society, it broke down before whatever we try to point to as the culprit. Like there's no way to reduce it to one variable, So, because my parents are married, both sets of grandparents stayed married. But I mean, there's dysfunction, like in every family. It's not like there's tons of divorce and all that stuff in extended family. But that's all to say, my parents both came from big families, 4 siblings for one, 5 siblings for the other. Family gatherings were huge. I grew up, so my parents were nominally religious. And then when I was like 4 or 5, maybe, my mom, I was baptized Methodist as a baby, though. I should mention that because that's important, and may play in later. But my mom, when I was like 4 or 5, there was like the weird church in town, the Pentecostal charismatic church, the one that starts as a Bible study, and then there's this extremely charismatic person. And in this point, it's not even like your used car salesman type charisma. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, that's what you sort of imagine. It was like this prophetess woman. And so anyway, there's like this revival in our town ish. I mean, depends on who you ask. And so, but I mean, that's the weird thing. Like, is there long-term fruit from that specific thing? No, but there were lives that were transformed in the meantime, which we'll get into stuff we will talk about, I'm sure. So anyway, she gets invited by my dad's mom, who used to be Catholic, and then she and my grandpa were lapsed Catholics, but then long story short, they had like transformative salvation experiences in this weird church.
Yeah.
And even now, if I ask my grandma about it, she'll always go back to this one. I don't know if she calls it like, and she's not a hyper spiritual lady. This one like dream or vision, open vision, I don't remember, where, and she'll say she somehow, like, she saw Christ come towards her, and then something happened in her in that moment, and from that point on, she knew that she knew that she knew that she was saved, that she was, yeah, I mean, that's her language. But you know what she's talking about, even if you have a more nuanced approach to like soteriology. So, and then, but for my mom, I think it was something similar. And so from that point on, my sister and I went with my mom to that weird church, and that's essentially what we grew up in. And my dad was okay with it. Like, we went to the school that was attached to the church, little private school, but he really didn't go that much. And I've not heard him talk about religion like at all my whole life, except when I retold the story of St. Christopher to my mom, and then my dad sort of like lit up, because that was like the saint he chose in Catholic school.
Wow.
And so,
did you know that?
Yes, I think I knew that at least a little bit. I knew there was some link there. But when I told that story, lit up, and like told my mom, like, see, I told you, like, he's helped me. But that's the extent, it's, and I haven't really pried deep either, because, every family's got their 100%. Stuff. But anyway, that was the religious upbringing. And I will say this, it really bothered me, that I don't say this to cast blame at all. I'm just speaking from my own experience. It really bothered me that my dad wasn't there. I don't know why. Like, if I tell the story a certain way, I'd probably get emotional about it still. It really bothered me. Because I didn't want to be there either. It's not like, oh, this is so awesome, I want dad here. I just hated it. I hated that being a separate thing. And, there was probably some fear and anxiety in fact, I know there was, when we talked about it, some fear and anxiety with my mom, like, it wasn't just like, well, I'm going to take the kids here and try to give them the word. It was like trying to make sure we, were saved from the dragons of the world.
Right.
So anyway, that was my religious upbringing. And then I ended up going to public school, like junior high and high school. And junior high was cool. I had a good time. I got along with everyone. You know, I found my place, more or less. You know, played lots of sports. I mean, I didn't really have a clue who I was for sure. Cause, like, you know, like you grow up and you realize, I mean, for a lot of people, eventually you come to a point of like, oh, this is what I'm actually interested in. And for whatever reason, like looking back, I was chasing a rabbit, for like much of my life. And part of that's just regular life, for, you know, like just mimetic desire. But I think for a lot of people, and some guys just aren't like that, you know, like maybe dudes on the spectrum, it's just like, I like what I like. What are you talking about? Why would I why would I veer course because of what everyone else wants?
Right.
But that was really the case for me.
Yep.
Because looking back, I hated playing sports past a certain point. It just got to this hyper competitive, maybe when all the testosterone started kicking in, like post adolescence, I was just like, and again, it's not like I'm like this girly dude who's like, you know, sports suck. Like I still follow some. It was just more, I realized looking back now, oh, that was not fun for me at that point. Like if I could go back in time, I would switch to something more like artsy or something like that, you know, and maybe just play like play tennis or something like that. But anyway, and then high school happened, and high school was not good. You know, and I wasn't like passionately following the Lord at all. Like I always had a desire, I think, to like do good. I remember going to church camps, and you know, you'd nail your secret sin up on the cross. You know, every man wrote porn or masturbation. Every boy did, and just nailed it up there. Had to be like 100 pieces of paper that said that on there. So like, you know, I had a, like many probably, I had a genuine desire to like do the right thing. But I think, there's a couple of factors at play there. For one, like my framing was off. Like it wasn't just like a holistic way of being. It was like a list of morals. And I don't even mean that as a pejorative. I mean, I just wanted to, I knew there was a list that was right. And I still believe that. And I wanted to do it. And I couldn't, because there was something else in me that wanted, that didn't think I could get there just by doing the right things. You know, I remember being in church one day and hearing this like traveling preacher saying something to the young people, like, listen, you guys can't just go do your own thing and then come back to God after you've had your fun, which flies in the face of the prodigal son story. But you can see what he's saying. But I remember thinking, like, logically, rationally, like, if the only goal is to just make sure I've said the prayer and I'm in a good place before I die, then why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I go get my fill and then just come back? And so it's like in my little boy heart, like I almost made that plan.
Yeah, there's a subconscious kind of, there's all nihilisms, there's a subconscious hedonist thing that sometimes goes into those spaces.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, it was a blend of just obviously my own sin and idolatry, a misunderstanding, poor catechism, you know, all that, and just hurt and pain, you know, all this stuff goes together.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously, like, what percentage of young boys who are born past 1990 or not, like middle-aged boys, aren't, you know, watching the, you know what, you know, so that obviously, I think it's almost just like a known thing, like it's in almost all stories, but it really is a very explanatory thing for a lot of shit that goes wrong. It really is. And I can't explicitly point to like how that affected me, you know, watching things I shouldn't watch, but I mean, it invaded every part of me, man. Like it's.
Look, can I point at something with that?
Like, yeah.
It's not just the knowing that it happens, but there's not really, at least, like the questions that I was asking at that age was like, is masturbation right or wrong? Give me the answer and then I'll know. And then, right, I won't do it, right? It's like that the right or wrongness isn't even really the question for that. Yeah. But that's really, like when you said the list of morals, that's kind of that's been the pervading, well, here's your answer, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And then you're shamed, and regardless of what blame we could put on to like systemic, providers of that content, regardless of that, the question is, what do we do when we're ashamed in a pervasive, where this is happening to like everybody? And the only thing we can say is basically only things that create more shame, instead of, which is a shameful behavior. I don't want to but you don't have to explain to me that it's shameful. Like how there's like a type of honesty, I think, that is not known how to, talk about sex with your son, or, as a religious leader to like, if we're going to say in some kind of discipling way. Mm-hmm. I was a youth pastor in my early 20s. And like, I remember like parents asking me, can you help my son with this? Like, and they're asking a 20-year-old to fix the problem for their 16-year-old that the dad's probably doing, and there's not a real there, because he doesn't have an answer. And that's all messed up. And
yeah.
So anyways, go ahead.
I imagine your experience, it probably was mostly moms coming to you and not the dads.
Yeah, it was a mom. She was like, can you help my son with this? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and that goes into it too. It's like, if you're and I was like a very insecure, sensitive dude too. And so if the only person giving you or attempting to give you the guidance there is your mom, your dad's not saying a peep about anything. I don't have one memory about my dad addressing this issue or even giving me any guidance on that,
Yeah.
And it's not going to help, like, it's a mess. Like, I have a hard time. I'll probably get into this later. I have a hard time like judging almost anyone, because no matter how messed up they are, because like, dude, a couple different facts, especially once you have kids, you're like, they're so sensitive and vulnerable. It's like a couple things go wrong in their little lives or aren't taken care of. You can see how almost, this isn't to take away human agency or dignity at all, but you're almost tempted to say their lives could go like 10,000 different ways terrible if like it's all that power is in my hand. It's not like I think that like in a bad way, but it's just think of all the households everywhere where just kids are not given anything. They're just let loose and let the egregores or the dragons of the world just feast on them. It's like, so how can I judge some evil dude out there who probably did not get what he needed to get? But that's not to take away his agency either.
Yeah, there's a line where, so I'll bring in this story, and I want you to finish where you're going, but this makes me think of the Michael Tate from DC Talk. I don't know if you've seen that pop up. First, like, I had the Jesus Freak cassette in '95. I had Newsboys cassettes and all their stuff. That's been in my life for so long. I was born in '85, so when that stuff was peaking, I was 10, and my parents were giving me Christian music and stuff. And when that happened, like, I went and listened to like In the Light by Michael Tate in DC Talk. I want to be in the light because you're in the light. I want to shine like the stars in the heaven. Lord, be my light and be my salvation, because all I wanted is to be in the light.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Is that what you really want right now, Michael Tate, is to be in the light? Probably not, but he should actually want the light to be all over his sin right now, because it's his only way to healing and repentance. Mm-hmm. But the thing, I'm listening to that and I'm thinking with compassion, listening to him sing that in the mid 90s when he's probably in his early 20s and dealing with demons and stuff, that he wants to be better. He wants to do better. He doesn't want to be that, but it's like that stuff doesn't just start when he's 50. It all starts when he's 10 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
And And so I listened to that with compassion. However, there's a part of me that's like, he should have confessed. And not only should he have confessed, even after he got caught, his confession, there was problems with it, but like, there's a point of responsibility that you then, I can have compassion for the egregores of the world and whatever may have even happened to him that we don't know about. And at the same time, believe that he should take responsibility for himself related to crimes or abuses that he committed related to that. I'll just add.
Yeah. Well, no, I think so. I had this like half written like thought piece that and it plays on I think it was George Bush who said like the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Is maybe Clinton.
Okay. Anyway, the idea of like, you can't look at something like terroristic acts and then immediately jump to, well, here's why. That's actually a soft bigotry of low expectations. And anyway, the play on it was going to be like the high dignity of high expectations, and how like in a world where someone would make a case like I just made, like, well, how can you blame anyone for doing anything? But without the sort of Christian story to hold it together, like God expecting regardless, still holding us to a standard and saying sin is sin, is actually him dignifying us as made in his image. Like no matter what sort of dark shit you've been to, here's the standard, and I want you to hold it for your own good. Otherwise, anything otherwise is the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's actually saying like, well, abortion rates are high, but here's why. Or like, yeah, I know people aren't getting married, but here it's like, just
admit it's not meeting a standard.
Yes. Yeah. And which gets into today a little bit with the whole like violent language to call men higher. You're not going to escape that. You will not call men higher without pitching it as violent and difficult and the possibility of death. It's just not happening. Which gets me back to my story.
Go for it.
So high school was bad, and that's all the insecurities and sensitivities. Then I was the lowest person on the totem pole in like this 1,000-person school, and a lot of my friends were like a grade below, so I didn't have like my crew with me. And I think things might have even blown up there. Anyway, it was a rough place. And then I really liked girls, but I was like bottom of the status, and so no one was really noticing me for the most part. I mean, never mind. You get what I'm saying. Like, yeah, there's guys who like pretty girls and are able to sort of like play around, and then guys who like pretty girls but they're just like sort of super quiet and keeping it secret, whatever. I was somewhere in the middle, but I wasn't doing great with the ladies, and I really wanted to, because I think that was definitely an idol in my life, even early on, like not even the whole sexual, like just dysfunctional nature of little boys letting their desires loose, but just making an idol of like, even me as a dude, making an idol of romance, and even family early on was part of it. And so I actually think that played into why I was so unsuccessful, is because I wanted it so goddamn bad that I couldn't just sort of play it cool. I just couldn't at all, So anyway, because like if you're like, girls to some extent do, if they're dating when they're freaking 15, they do really want to have fun, like as the song goes. And so if you're some like super serious, like romantic, sensitive, insecure dude, like you're probably not going to do well. Like, but anyway, so I'm the lowest on the totem pole. That's going on. I don't have a lot of friends. There's like 1,000 people. I'm no one. I had bouts with like depression and anxiety even from a young age, which, whether that's spiritual, chemical, just whatever's in our cultural air, who knows? But just as McMoa said, I was a sad boy, at various times. I just was. It weighed on me pretty hard. So yeah, high school was rough. Still had those church camp experiences, of like really wanting to do the God thing, but just like that can't give me what I need, because I'm in the world. But I've kind of got like one foot in both, so eventually I get through high school and it's my senior year. I sort of just scrap my way. Like I try to like hang out with my friends and just get through it and get good enough grades to appease my parents. But I really had very little interest. I wasn't able to like focus on school to the best of my ability. Like I got good grades, but like if I would have cared, I probably could have crushed, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I get to senior year and now I'm feeling good because there's no one above me, because I was like super intimidated, like way too intimidated. And like, so even when I'm a junior in high school, as long as those seniors are there, like I'm just still I'm not feeling safe. Which is embarrassing to say, but it really was the case. And so, but senior year hits and things are going pretty well because it's senior year. There's no intimidating figures above me. I get along with most people in my class. I played football that year. I hadn't played football since 8th grade. Our team sucked, but I played football and started a defensive back and
had fun.
And that the summer before my senior year, this girl that I had liked for all 4 years, she was a cheerleader, bright, bubbly gal. And we had been like friends. We'd had a little bit flirty moments off and on, like throughout the years. But then we start hanging out that summer, and then we start dating. That you have that magic moment where you're like, holy crap, like from a freaking like some dude's version of a rom-com, like where I'm sort of in a friend zone. I don't like hang out in the friend zone, but that's just where I'm at in her world for years. And then all of a sudden, the fireworks go off and you're not in the friend zone anymore. And so I'm on cloud 9. Like I have been saved. I'm feeling great. And so school starts, we're dating, and I should say this too. And if any of this is not helpful or is boring, just please let me know.
Dude, keep going.
But when I did have my a couple girlfriends here and there from junior high or high school or whatever, this weird thing would happen in me. So like beforehand, I'm like desperately desiring a girlfriend or whatever, or a particular person even. And then I would get a girlfriend. And then I just would not be able to connect or connect really. And then I would just start to like physically be repulsed by them. Like a freaking episodic pattern, like every single one. And then I would just sort of like stop connecting and it would just sort of dissolve, that because when you're 13, what the hell else, is it going to look like other than some weird dissolving? And so that a couple months into this one, when I was a senior with this girl I started dating, first girlfriend in like years, I'm feeling great. I was on the football team. I had a cheerleader girlfriend. Like, wow, miracles do happen. I'm saved. I'm living the American dream. That happens a couple months into this relationship, the whole repulsion thing. And I'm sitting in class. I'm like kind of looking at her like, I don't know. Right. This person who's been like desperate for years is over there like, I don't know.
The chase. You got the chase, man.
Yeah.
Is that the thing?
And then this weird thing happens. I'm homesick. Like the day after, I'm thinking like, I don't know about this person. We'll see. I'm homesick. And this intense like thought enters my head. And the thought isn't going to match with the hell that it sent me in. But I had this thought. I was like, what if she breaks up with me? And then I got with just that little thought getting in my head, like it was as if this anxiety bomb just went off. And I start panicking. I'm like, I got to make sure this isn't happening. And this isn't the most uncommon thing to happen. As I sort of like eventually figure out, like, she comes over or something and sort of casually mentions, because I think I asked her about it, like, yeah, I was thinking about breaking up with you. And I forgot why, like we got in a little fight or something, but it was said so casually. I don't know if it was some sort of power move or what, because also part of the reason why I got to such a secure place to even go, I don't know about this girl. Because if I wasn't in a secure place, I probably wouldn't have thought that, is because as we're like dating, she's telling me like, dude, all my stuff. You've got my heart by a string, like, all the stuff. And so I'm thinking like, this is really it. Like, this is going to be like my high school sweetheart. We're going to freaking live life together and this is going to be awesome. And then from that point on, after that thought entered my head and then we had that conversation, then I think it was like a couple weeks after that, she did break up with me. And I sort of had to find out on my own. Cause I was kind of like a rebound, kind of not. I mean, she wasn't like, it's a long story or it's just like dumb high school drama. And as you look back, cause I'm like 33 now, but it still feels so real. But I do think she was genuine, but also like I was a very broken person. She was a very broken person. And, she was very broken from a guy she'd had a long-term relationship before then, which if there's any high schoolers out there, just don't waste your time. Like, please, God, don't. Like, please do not waste your time. So, anyway, it's a hot mess. Like I go from like cloud nine. It's like I was like in some sort of hellish state through high school. And then in the fall, I get like raised up so high into the heavens. And then I fall like way deeper than I'd ever fallen before.
Yeah.
Cause I've got a full on, like, as our purity culture taught us, I've got a soul tie, actual one. That's real. All that purity stuff isn't wrong.
Yeah.
There's like a spirit behind it that's wrong. Like, let's try to, anyway, we don't have to get in that, but you know what I'm saying. But like the facts they lay out are not wrong. Like, or what they say you shouldn't do is not wrong. And there's reasons for that. So anyway, I like descend to like a deep place, really bad. We're on again, off again for like another year. I'm never the same. It's bad. It's a disaster. I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. I hadn't had a thought of what the hell I was going to do when I'm older. I kind of just thought things would work. I'd go to college, things would work out. That, I go on like some college visit in the spring and she's there because we must have been on again at that point. And I'm just overwhelmed walking this college, like all sorts of just, I'm in some weird depressive, anxious state. Like everything I look at has like an anxious thought attached to it. Just a disaster, like in a disastrous mental state. I'm probably 18 by that point, senior year of high school. And so anyway, I turned 19. I'm going to like the community college because I have no idea what else to do. I probably signed up for the Army. I don't know if that had fallen through yet, but, and we're like broken up. And I don't know what happened or how it happened, but I get home from like class one day and I get into my room and I sit there and I like prayed. And the reason I prayed this was for two reasons. I knew that God could heal me or make me better out of that very terrible state I was in, that hellish like prison of anxiety and depression. Number one was I knew he could heal me. And number two is I knew he could give me a good wife. And that changed a lot over the years, how I thought that would work out. But because of those two things, I just said, God, I want to do this your way. And so things got a bit better from there, for sure. Still not great, but better. Like I was attempting to sort of walk the path,
Yeah. What is doing things God's way? What is that?
Well, just like what I had grown up, all that church camp stuff that I'd come home from church camp and be like, okay, I'm going to do this now. And then like 3 days later, just like
have a quiet time, go to church.
Yeah. just like whatever the model was I had in my head that I was not living up to, I was actually starting to attempt that. So, going to church, praying, Jesus Culture, the band was really big. I just freaking put the
headphones
and that's
on.
still a very, very meaningful CD to me. I forget
which album.
Come Away.
I used to lead that song with my guys on the road.
I love that song.
Come away with me.
I love that album. Yeah. Just because I know Chris Kilala is a great, I don't know him personally, but I do know that he's a great man.
Praise God. I hope that's
so anyway,
that's a cool album. Yeah, keep going.
It's an awesome album. Very special to me, and was definitely a tool of that just helped me. And so all this stuff. I'm praying. I'm going to church. I'm
listening to worship music.
Oh yeah, because I had nowhere else to go. I had nothing else to do, and so I was just at a point of desperation. And so I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just like praying and reading my Bible and just like putting on worship music because I'm in this terrible state. And it's like there is a degree of worship music that can be like David's harp calming Saul's demons. Like that is a thing. I think when that becomes commodified, it's bad. And maybe your goal shouldn't be to have a service that's just doing that. Like David didn't do that in the temple, but it can be a thing. And it was a thing for me. It for sure was.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so anyway, I start going to church and God brings all of these great friends into my life. Because the church, the Pentecostal church I was at gets taken over by this other church that was in the Assemblies of God, but they were kind of their own thing. And I meet other young people who are like legit Christians, and are in the sort of same sphere of spirituality or whatever that I was, and that for sure saved me. I mean, these are people I'm still friends with to this day. And anyway, fast forward like a year or two, I'm in Redding, California, at Bethl School of Supernatural Ministry.
Nice,
aka Christian Hogwarts. And
Expelliarmus.
Yes. Expecto Patronum.
Right.
So yeah, I find myself at Bethl, and
that was kind of a thing. That was kind of a if you're that kind of like, I'm really seeking, like, how do I take my faith deeper? Well, here's a place. Here's a monastery. I have friends from from here that went to Reading. I know 4 people that went out to there, and one of them was playing guitar, and one of them, go ahead.
I was there from 2012, basically onward. I was more or less involved for like 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I might know some of them if you want to share later.
Yeah.
But and basically my reason for going there was to get more of God.
Yeah.
To get better, because I still, all that shit I described to you was like still there, Yeah. And I was like, and the metaphor I use, which I think is very apt, is what I was hoping to do is be there when the angel stirred up the water. Just be in the area, get the miracle. You hear all about it. So that's why I went. But at the end of school, I definitely had some buyer's remorse because the big miracle didn't happen. I was still feeling pretty shitty. Which, just for what it's worth, I understand how stupid this framing is that I have, but that was the framing I had at the moment.
It's
right?
Not stupid. I mean, what else is there? I mean, if that's your world, like, and I understand that world pretty well. Like, how do I go deeper? Well, the stage. These are the people I want to go close to them. This is the epicenter of the movement. I want to be close. I have friends that went and did the Hillsong school as well. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the good things about the charismatic movement, in my opinion, that has been absorbed by other branches, is that it doesn't blink when there's an impossible situation.
Mm. Yeah, they believe in miracles, and that's where the metaphysics of charism and, you know, transubstantiation meet. Like that, in the stuff that's kind of in the middle of that is like those two things are kind of like the snake and the tail a little bit.
Yeah. 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 You know, it says we might not have the answer, or we don't know why you haven't gotten the miracle, but we think that you can. And I felt that my mental state, my spiritual state, I didn't know what was my body or my mind or some sort of spiritual warfare going on, but whatever it is, that there's a way. And now I do understand there's more branches of Christianity that say that, and they have different approaches, but they were the ones that I knew, and they were saying it, and that's why I went there.
So you were at Reading for 7 years?
Yeah, I was.
Did you meet your wife there?
I did. So after my first year, I come back because I have no idea what the hell to do even. Like, I'm not thinking, like, if I could go back in time, I'd just sit myself down and be like, dude, first of all, freaking relax. Like, quit being so anxious. Like, just do some basic stuff, get a job. Anyway, I'll get into that later, but I didn't know what the hell to do. So I thought, okay, let me pull the slot machine again. Let me go intern at my church. And so I went and interned with the various departments. I mean, youth, worship, whatever. I've had various, actually, yeah. So I was like a youth pastor ish at a campus church for like that year. And then I did some worship leading. You know, still not feeling great. You know, I've got all that baggage that I'm just carrying around with me every day. And so I you know, that year gets over, and don't get me wrong, there's some good times. I mean, I'm hanging out with like one of my best friends was working at the church, and we worked a lot together, and he was like on paper, like my mentor, but we were like basically peers. Yeah. He was best man at my wedding. And so after a year, you know, what do I do? And I should say, no, it doesn't matter. Never mind. I had another episode, not a bad one though this time, a Christianized version of that sort of like relational longing but rejecting. Had another Christian version in a good way episode with another gal, and anyway, that didn't work out. Too bad. And so after like 1 year, I'm like, you know what? Or after 1 year being back home, I'm like, who am I kidding? Let's pull the slot machine again. Let's go back. So I go back to Reading for a second year, which is like their leadership year. And I only get in because like my first year revival group pastor said like, hey, he's a good guy. He can get in. Because when I interviewed at the end of my first year, I was like breaking down because just from a couple of questions from this person, like, why didn't you turn your homework in? Part of it is like the homework is a joke. You're only reading books written by Bethl people, right? I read one book, well, or like some leadership book. But I read one book that was a spiritual book, not written by anyone in the Bethl, whatever. It was written by A.W. Tozer, Pursuit of God. Easily the best book we read in the 2 years. Not even close.
Yep.
And the college I ended up going to in Reading had a seminary named after Tozer because it was Christian Missionary Alliance. So, so anyway, I go back to second year, and you'll be shocked to know nothing changed, right? Same shit, different day. I lived with a bunch of dudes, which was awesome. Like in a house that had not
fraternity. I mean, you're doing the fraternity thing. Yeah.
Oh, dude, the fraternity saved my life. I'm still friends with some of these guys. It absolutely saved my life. It made like life worth living. Cause like you can have a shitty day and then you like go home and your buddy's like, hey man, you want to watch The Office? It's like, I forgot I was in hell. Like, of course I do. That'd be awesome. So anyway, and I have moments, you know, at school, because you got to understand the thing at Bethl is like the worship nights that are a thing now, like where you pay for an encounter with God, you know.
Ooh, indulgences.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, temple. Buy a little bird from the temple. I mean the merch table. No, we've all been there. It's all good. But every or a conference, that's like every day at school. There's like an hour minimum like worship session, you know. So it's very like they are using this psychotechnology to, without knowing what they're even doing. They're just like, oh, this is how we encounter God. This is our sacrament. So we want to get as much of this sacrament as possible.
Yep.
But you can see how if you're someone in my state, you know, and then every single day at school, the angels are stirring up the water, and you look over there and, oh, that person got in first, you know, or oh, that person got in first. They're getting some miracle or some manifestation. You're just like, God damn it. Like,
maybe
what do I got to do?
What do you, you know, there's that whole aspect too. I mean,
what do I got to do to make all my suffering go away, man? And so thanks be to God, after the second year, I did not continue, because that's the point where you're just like not even in school anymore. You're interning for the church. So you're paying money to be an employee to do their job. So I go, because this is how I would cope with just the state I was in, as I would just come up with some fantasy and go, because the whole reason I got to second year is I'm like, I'll go back to school and then I'll come back to this church and work for the church. Because I had favor there, and it was a decent sized church. I could have done anything I wanted to at that church. Not like anything, but I could have worked for them and just like been a person on staff who occasionally preached or did transition during offering or this or that, you know. But something in me just could not do it. Like, and so even after second year, it's like I could not. That door was wide open for me. Sorry, everything's good.
Hopefully that's not a sign.
I know, man. I should have walked through that door. But the ministry door was wide open for me.
Yeah.
And this is with people I knew and liked, and I could not do it. And I think it's because I knew I wasn't in a good place. And also something about my relationship to the charismatic sacramental system, if you will, was just not healthy. Because to me, like, the central imagery I have is waiting for the angel to stir up the water and creating environments where the angel stirs up the water, and you just got to be there for when it happens. That was my relationship to it. And I think there's a significant degree to where that is true for people who are genuinely suffering and genuinely seeking. Now, if it's not so big and you have like decent pastors there, someone could have just been like, if I could have explained that to them or got to the bottom of that, it was just some charismatic church down the road and not Bethl, some guy would have been like, dude, settle the hell down. Like relax. Like, just, you can't control that. God's good. Here's what can you do? You know, so maybe someone could have taught me virtues, for God's sake. I don't know. But I was so caught in that system of just like seeking the miracle, seeking the end of my suffering. I could not get out of it. So I come up with that cope. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a teacher and a basketball coach, like, right in the middle of that. And so I go to the college in town, which is like a Christian liberal arts school, Simpson University. It's a pretty good school, actually. And I had a great time there. That's where my like intellectual sort of nature began to sprout.
What year was that?
15.
Okay.
Yeah, 2015. And so I got my degree in history from there. I played basketball for 1 year, which sucked. Because I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a coach, so obviously I'm gonna go like play some basketball. But I was 10 years too late. Like, didn't realize how much I hated it. And I had another episode with this poor girl I dated, and it's, you know, anyway. But it was her who finally told me one time when we were sitting, and I was explaining to her how much I hated playing basketball, and she's like, "Why don't you just not play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess that's a good idea." But it gives you a lens into like whatever the hell was off with my just forcing myself to do shit I didn't want to do, which is also really tough. Was really tough at Bethl too, because it's like there's all this shit that you don't want to do, you know, and they're like, oh, you know, like sometimes to get your breakthrough, you got to do something while you're afraid or do something scared. And so I'm doing all this like evangelistic-y stuff that's just like not me at all, like not one bit, stepping out of my comfort zone. And but I always have that thought. I'm like, well, if I don't, am I going to miss out? So I'm forcing myself to do all sorts of weird stuff. And I had this dream one time that I think gets at the nature of at least my experience at Bethl. And I think it's a lot of people's. And this isn't to trash Bethl as a whole, though. At this point in my life, it's safe to say I wouldn't suggest. I had a point where I was like in a little bit of a deconstruction phase, where I was still able to say like, hey, it's not for me, but I still would recommend people go there. Yeah, no, don't do that. So, yeah, that was tough. So anyway, I'm in college, and while I'm in college, I'm a janitor at the church. And so I'm like cleaning their little elementary school every night. And that's when old Papa Peterson comes in, Jordan Peterson. First time I heard him, I went through like a little small political phase, not even like a crazy leaning one way or the other. Like everyone's talking about like liberalism right now. It's like, guys, I was there in 2016 listening to Dave Rubin when he was talking about bringing back classical liberalism. And right. You all thought he was some far right figure. So I don't want to hear shit about bringing back classical liberalism, because I was there when he was trying, this poor Florida gay man. And so anyway, I was listening to like the Rubin Report, and he had Peterson on, and I'm listening in 2016 as I'm vacuuming the hallways of this church/school. And while Peterson's talking, I'm thinking, about like, not saying things that aren't true. I'm thinking, is this guy a Christian? Because he sounds like a Christian. And he gets to the end of the interview, and Dave Rubin says something like, so, what do you recommend? Like, where do we go from here? What happens now? And then he tells the story of Pinocchio, and he gets emotional, right? He's talking about like wishing upon a star, like aim for the highest thing. And it really hits me, like what he's saying. And so that happens. And then I proceed to listen to every single piece of content that Peterson had. So at that point, I don't even know if they're available anymore. Every university class he had ever taught, he even has Harvard stuff on there.
Yeah.
It's just on a YouTube playlist. And I'm listening to all the classes from all the years, soaking it up. This was before biblical series, but when that happens, obviously I'm soaking that up too. And what that helped me with is I was deconstructing, and I think people talk about that as if it's like an intentional thing you do. It was something that was just happening to me. My house of cards, my little religious system I had that was keeping me safe, was falling apart.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was, I knew it was falling apart, and I finally let it fall apart when Peterson was there to say, hey, this whole Christianity thing, there's something there. And so there was something about his voice and him saying it so authoritatively from outside that there's a there that let me let go of my own versions of stuff and still have hope and still believe. And so for the first time in my life, I just let myself go, I don't know what's true.
Yeah.
Which I had a talk with Jeff P way back in the day, and I get into that a little bit there. But so I go through like a year phase of just not being sure what's true, not giving up on anything, not saying I don't believe anything, just like I don't know. And then I had a really bad depressive episode as I was being taken to the airport, like by my bros. We're hanging out, having Mexican food, and kind of like that scene I described from that college visit when I was 18. It was kind of like one of those where it's like almost like this cynical, anxious lens is put on me, and I view everything through like how a demon wants me to see it or something. So I'm in at that state as my two of my good buddies are taking me to St. Louis to fly back to California. I was there on break or something. And while I'm in the restaurant with this clearly like gay waiter, which isn't helping, like I'm just feeling very badly. Everything's falling apart. And as I'm in the restaurant, at the end of this phase of not being sure what's true, in a particularly depressive episode, it's not like I was there 24/7. But it's like I just saw all of the, we were in a bigger city, it's like I saw all of everyone around me just like serving the machine or serving themselves. And I saw all this decadence, and then now nothing was going to last. And all the meaninglessness, or not that it was meaningless, but I was kind of viewing it that way. But there's something true about it, like there was decadence, and everyone was having a good time in the restaurant. But it's like, what sort of spiritual state were they in? Like it just felt dark in that moment. I don't know if I was seeing clearly or not, but while I was in that place, I sort of made this quick calculation in my head, and I thought, okay, unless the gospel story is true, unless the resurrection is true, it's all space dust. It's all ends up in a black hole. And so in that moment, and it's not like I felt great after I decided, but in that moment, in that Mexican restaurant in St. Louis, that's when I made this sort of like leap of faith. Like, okay, it's all true. I believe it. I believe the Christian story. And it's not that I didn't believe it up to that point. Like I said, it was just more like Peterson gave me the permission to be like, I don't know what the hell is true. I don't know if I'm allowed to think the earth is a certain age. But anyway, so that's and then from that point on, it has just been a slow climb out of that mess. And it's just very small things, and sometimes it's like some good advice I had along the way is like, if you're spiraling, like, because I was in and out of different therapy things, and both like pop psychology, sort of like, because in the Bethl world, like they have their own little, they call it the Transformation Center, their own little counselors, and some of them are good, some not. Some of the methodology is good, some not. And it's not like I think the highest about like official, like big therapy world either. Again, some good, some not. Like there's, so I'm not just going to shit all over like whatever program some charismatic church has, because if I go to some therapist down the road here in town, they could be like a crazy person who's wants to create as many divorces as possible. Like that's a thing that's real. But anyway, so I was in and out of various contexts, both in church, out of church. So one of the good pieces of advice someone gave me, I think it might've been while I was still going to like a Bethl type person, is, no, it wasn't. It was someone who actually had a therapy degree. They're like, well, if you're spiraling, realize you're probably just going to spiral for a bit. Like, there's no fixing it in that instant. Just accept it. You're in a bad spot. You're spiraling. Remind yourself, it never lasts forever, because it never does. And then do what you can, right? Like in that moment, you can't like make all perfect choices and go like do a freaking prayer hour or whatever. I mean, you can if you want. I mean, a saint probably could, but if you can't, like, don't be hard on yourself. Maybe just try to get to bed on time. Maybe try to get
that what Peterson was saying too.
Yeah. And the Peterson advice for sure, like helped save me, man. It's not like I followed it all to a T, but it's just like, just the simple things he was laying out that, like, we talked before about, just there's certain things that they don't come from a man at a certain age. They're not getting, you'll be malformed. Right. And it's not that God can't heal that later on. It's a very difficult process. He can, but there will be malformation unless it's given to you by a man early on. And, Peterson was part of that healing process for me, for sure. And so I finished college, obviously, like as the story goes, my coping plan didn't work. I tried coaching a little bit with a friend, junior highs in town, didn't like it. I T8 for my professor. I didn't like it. So I didn't want to go teach. And so I got a job as like, I kept doing the janitor thing. I got like a full-time managing position, and then bounced into like this electrician job randomly. Met my wife at kind of through Bethl, through friends, through work. I have all three of those. And just sort of like took the plunge with marriage. I mean, there's a long story there. Like the same issues I brought up earlier with all my episodic things were there, but weirdly enough, like, I mean, it's like marriage is fine. Like as far as like, it wasn't this big bad monster that I thought it would be. And kids have helped too, because you just think about yourself less and less. you don't really have much time for yourself. And when you do, you're very focused. Like, well, if I've got like 2 hours, so if I don't read, I will not read.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I mean, that's a long story short, but yeah. Oh, and
the hour mark, and a long story short, right on the hour mark.
Oh yeah, well, I meant the last part there. Yeah, sorry.
I
I don't think I've ever shared this much, man. But yeah, as far as the religious thing, like so my wife had pretty bad. I've listened to several portions of things of yours, and obviously I've seen you around.
Sure.
But I probably your start to finish story I'm unfamiliar with. But when your wife shared about postpartum, for sure was the case with us, especially with our first.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we ended up back here in Illinois, where I'm from, because we just had to have help.
Yeah.
And so my parents, my mom especially, like definitely saved us from a dark place there and helped us out a lot. And but anyway,
to that point though, like, I mean, so you can't like, I was in Paul's live stream today. Don't always get to make a good, I work a lot of Fridays. And this, I kind of keep harkening back to this whole family thing, not in like a, and there's always like, well, the church should be able to be your family. And there are situations when James talks about the widow and the orphan, and like, there are situations where people don't have family. And there are situations where family is bad, really negative. However, like, so does that mean that the church, that we shouldn't look to some, wish upon a star for a type, not that any family is going to be perfect, but that your case in point, we had to move home because there's a certain kind of relationship that I was never going to happen, barring a miracle, really, in Reading. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a unique relationship that is called a mother, like, and a grandmother. Like, that is a unique relationship.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just wanted to point to that.
Well, I think that's Paul. That was Paul Renee's point to Nate, is just that, like, this thing that's been dissolved is the basis of civilization. And it's true. And the only successful anarchist colonies are religious ones. They're the early church, because then like father and son really were split for a lot of people in the early church. Like, it was its own thing within a thing. But then that rebirthed civilization. I mean, that's the miracle of the Middle Ages. And as you're familiar with, the Middle Ages got a bad rap in like a lot of evangelical circles. It's just skipped over. But it's like, that was a miracle. Like, that was a miracle. But I mean, a lot of people don't have that option now, like,
well, and to I mean, you mentioned, and you talked about issues with your dad, and I've had issues with my dad. And if you're listening, Dad, you know all about them. It's taken time to work through. And, however, like, when y'all came to a very low place, y'all needed your family. I don't know how else to say that. And no matter if you, so here's a hypothetical, non-hypothetical. Say you have postpartum and you live, 2 days drive away from your family. You would probably need something like a live-in nanny to help you cope with that situation, which costs a lot of money. And some people, I bet there's a lot of wealthy people that have postpartum depression that don't have to go home because they can pay for that season, but that was my point to Sam Tiedman today, where he kind of said that, but is you have to make like, $350,000 to subsidize family in the metropolitan area. But that's not even the ideal. But it's like, oh, look at this life or something, this material life. But that is not actually the ideal. And I think that like, I was having this ideas coming together today because I was like, the whole conversation on Paul's stream today was about a post Jordan Hall had on Twitter.
And, I have lots of thoughts on it.
And Jordan Hall and I took a picture in front of this picture at ARC because this was the conceptual war inside of his head that somebody else painted. It's called the Culture War. And it has pictures of Jordan Peterson carrying the incels across the bridge to Christianity. It has Alex Jones over here, and it has that big river going across the middle is called the mainstream. And there's these little kingdoms and everything. And you said there's been a war like on the family or on the, like, I don't remember exactly how you said it, like on this, whatever you said, Paul Renee said, but because I liked how you also brought in that story, like, no, you need to protect your kids from all the evils of the world. And that kind of flies in the face of, well, what do you like in the wisdom of the prodigal's like father to give him half, his wealth to squander. He came home and because even my father's servants eat better than I do at this point, and he came home to and I think there's almost this idea of not just family, but the idea of like whatever home is, home is where your heart is. Home is where blah, blah, blah. I think it's like something that's more than that. And I do think like the liberal idea, I guess, is you can make home whatever you want to make it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that's mainstream conservatism as well.
Yeah. At this point. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just no, the most, dysfunctionally conservative, or like the people whose conservative politics are the most whacked that I know have no tie to place at all. Just move wherever, like a leech. No offense to them, but it's just like, yeah, they happily moved from their home. And I mean, sometimes you got to go home. Like I'm not, because it's like, I don't know if my wife will be, my wife and I will be here forever, because she hates the cold. And we came here for a particular reason. We've been here for years. And not great schooling. Anyway, so it's like, I'm not trying to shame anyone.
Idealize.
Yeah, definitely not. Or romanticize, but it's definitely like, if it swings the other way without becoming an idol, that's not such a bad thing, for sure.
What do you mean if it swings which way?
Like if right now the pendulum is just like no tie to place or home or extended family. And so if that were to swing the other way
to like nation and bloodline.
Right. But without becoming an idol.
Okay.
It wouldn't be such a bad thing. I was talking more at the local level, not on some like national politics level.
Well, but that is the pendulum. Like that's the when it doesn't have a subsidiarial fractal to it, it's abstracted, to just that high level.
Yeah.
Of power, and yeah, it's really interesting. So that has kind of been you're in the last, couple of weeks when this conversation's kind of boiled up, and I appreciate you sharing like your whole story. And I
didn't realize it took so long, man. I apologize.
There's no there's no reason to apologize. That's what we're here for, and like there's some place on the internet. There's a place, I guess, where that story will exist, and you can point people to maybe, or, and, or that it's just like the thing about the rando thing with Paul related to, I mean, you're in the archetype, like, but I think that there's like I'm in the archetype, like, it's not a bad thing. The thing about like moving from kind of on to, hey, I'm a person here, and there is a claiming of a sense of agency that takes place through the rando. Like, I believe that, like, because it's kind of a lot of it was downstream from Peterson, and it's like it was in this, we're in a completely different place now, but at the time, or some of those early randos was in a time where saying something that you actually believe to be true on the internet felt dicey in its own way, and it still is in a certain way. But it's like you're claiming a sense of agency. You're talking to the whole world, even though the whole world will never hear this. You're talking to the potential of the whole world right now, you know, and that's
well, in that way, it's symbolic of just doing it locally, because there's more of a possibility of everyone hearing it, technically speaking, here once this goes published. Whereas, like, if I just go outside right now and yell what I think, not going to happen. But when in your own life you begin to say what you really think and say what you think is true, there is, I think, the thing you brought up with a rando sort of becoming a real boy, is like when you, even if on the internet you learn how to say what you think is true and you let it be your real self, that's not disconnected from doing it in real life, you know.
If it's in a genuine pursuit, not, you know, like, you know, as opposed to, and I think that's where the anon thing, there's a difference between that as well, related to bringing yourself more of as a person versus an avatar into the digital space.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's interesting, you know, when you get to that point of the story where you're talking about seeing Peterson on Reuben, there's now a sense of nostalgia attached to that for me to hear you talk to that.
For sure there is.
Because it's like it's like, yeah, man, you and me were there together, you know. And that's the weird, and that's like, how do you find, and that's the interesting thing about this corner of the internet is a finding of something, and why is there this weird kind of trust that gets extended? I feel like because it's like, if you kind of took this guy seriously on some level, you tried it, like, at least you tried, or maybe there is actual fruit of responsibility in your life, and then, you know, and then into a seriousness related to your faith. And I mean, I think from what I've gathered on X is, like, I think you attend an Anglican church currently, like, and that would be, you know, going from charismatic working at a Bethl church as a janitor, listening to Peterson in your ears, and then ending up, you know, in the high church mainline. Like, that's also part of the trajectory. And like, so, and you said when you were at the community college, you were listening to, or not, sorry, you got a degree in history. So and then you started kind of an intellectual pursuit. What has that intellectual pursuit look like?
Well, yeah, it was like, so I mentioned it at Bethl. There's, in their school, 90% of the books you're reading are just like Bethl people or adjacent other like famous charismatic preacher people, like Heidi Baker or something like that, you know. But they're all like that level of, it's like fifth grade reading level. Like most of those books, they're designed for mass publication for your average literate Christian. Like, and again, that's where A.W. Tozer stood out like a diamond in the rough, because it's like, he's a legit smart guy.
Yeah.
That's not to call the other people not smart, but the A.W. Tozer publishers weren't like trying to create a mass produced spiritual get well book. I'm really not trying to reduce it, but a lot of those books are just not great. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. But as I'm reading those in BSSM or Bethel School, whatever,
Supernatural Ministry.
Yeah, it's a long name. I'm still thinking like, this is it. This is the real thing, you know, because that's part of if they're not careful, that's part of the charismatic
ethos.
It's not even succession, but their story is like, the early church did it right, and then religion came, or they made it religious. They made it a religion again, and then it was all wrong. Martin Luther finally did some good stuff, and then there were revivals that would pop up, and here we are. But again, what made that story so tragic for me, I started listening to Pajot shortly after the Peterson thing as well. And so as I'm learning about church history and the Middle Ages and all this stuff, that being a black space in that history from Christ till now was very tragic for me. Like it was very indicative that something's wrong. But before I even got to that point, I mean, I was just in like this iron box of like not listening to too much outside from like the religious people, you know, because we had the Spirit. And so going to college, that's when I just started, and this was like at a conservative Christian, not conservative, it was at a Christian liberal arts school. You know, you start reading other people, you know, even if it's like a history books or something, but even you just get exposed to different stuff. And so that really started opening me up. And then Peterson's referencing these guys, and I start reading like Dostoevsky and Augustine, and Pajot's talking. I start getting interested in like the Orthodox stuff. And that's when after listening to Pajot, and I just start paying attention to the patterns around me, right? That's like his whole thing. I'm like, okay. So I go into offices to clean them. And up on the walls of these offices of these pastors are icons, not real icons. Picture Billy Graham, picture some famous hero, picture some great event that happened. And so I was like, oh, this is what Pajot's saying. He's not making a defense of icons. He's saying iconography is inevitable.
Yeah, it exists.
It exists. And that's not to say everyone has icons held to a degree as sacred as the Orthodox hold their icons. It's to say the pattern that is a pinnacle of exists in reality. Like, what do you think a poster on a wall is? What do you think setting a manger scene out every year is?
Right.
So, I noticed that, and this is like back when art was cool. So there'd be worship, and then someone's like doing some random prophetic painting, you know, up there. Yeah. And
I've had people paint when I was leading worship.
I painted before, dude. I've done it all. Yeah. I'm noticing the charismatics have their own real presence. But yes. Instead of for the Eucharist, it's when like you get the feels. And yeah. I'm not being mean there. I just mean that is, they talk about it. It's like, oh, the presence was here today. The presence was thick today.
Yep.
But then when it comes to like the Eucharist, you know, it's just like, well, you know, bread and wine. We'll read a verse where Christ says, it's my body and blood, but not real presence. It's like, well, then what are you talking about when you say the presence was here? Like, and is that possible if the smoke machine's not rolling, you know?
Or the bass isn't set at 80 hertz, man.
Yeah. Because the presence to me feels the same way as a state-of-the-art sound system feels when someone hits the C chord on the synthesizer. That's to me what the presence feels like. Again, synthesizer is heavy in that Come Away album, and I love it. But I'm not going to reduce the presence of God to the synth, you know, as much as I love the synth.
Yeah.
And then like on a sacramental level, I was like, oh, once I understood sacraments, I'm like, we have sacraments. We have means to grace. They're not official channels. And that's actually why I appreciate the traditional, at least, idea of the sacraments. And the case I make to anyone who's not in a sacramental tradition is the one of marriage. Because once you explain marriage as like an official means of grace, anyone who's in a marriage, a Christian marriage, goes, yeah, obviously, this has been a means of grace. I'm holier because of my marriage. Easy connection to make. It's a lot harder when like you go up to receive this little wafer and you're not feeling anything. It's harder to make a connection there, but marriage, it's much easier to make the connection with.
And not just the marriage of the life of the marriage, but the marriage ceremony. Actually, it's one of the few things. It's one of the few things in evangelicalism or in parts of, you know, there's still like kind of the whimsical beach weddings and field weddings and these types of things. But, you know, I saw some friends of mine I go to church with, they do, the wife does photography, and they shot a wedding recently at the church I got married in, this First Baptist church here in town. And the bride and the groom were kneeling on a kneeler to take communion, which I did. Me and my wife did that a long time ago. I was a Catholic. It was her grandma's Catholic kneeler. And they were going to be served communion.
You could just do this every Sunday.
But, you know, see, isn't that the interesting thing? Like, there's no question that there's something holy about the participation that's taking place. And it's not just a creative element. It's oh, this is, their ceremony is still honored. The liturgy of the wedding stand when the bride comes in, and there's a song, sometimes it's a traditional song, and the way that the procession of the wedding party, and then the lighting of a candle or taking communion, and like these things, there's still like this thing that's like, and I was looking at that, and it's like everyone was totally understood without like why it was okay for these Baptists to be kneeling to take communion there. There's like no question.
Yeah.
And yet when you say, but it's like, but don't do that on Sunday. It's, oh, it can't be. And however, because the response to having to keep your attention reverent to something holy for an hour and a half a week is sinful or religious or stuffy. Like I can't breathe because I can't drink my coffee right now. I don't know.
Yeah, and well, even with the marriage ceremony too, it's like you're willing to say the same vows that we've been saying for hundreds of years, but we won't say the same creed we've said for 2 millennia because it's religious. It's like the Apostles' Creed is one of the most kumbaya unifying things there is. That's even Unitarian Sam could get down with it.
Yeah, but I asked him that on our podcast. I was like, "What do you think about the?" He's like, "I love the Apostles' Creed."
Yeah, it's the Nicene Creed he has an issue with.
Right, but in the to that point, it just is interesting. Like that's one of the only, like I have a few things. I haven't ever got any tattoos, but one would be the Apostles' Creed, one would be the Lord's Prayer, one would be a symbol of the Trinity. And like I've wanted those. That's like been my thing for a long time. But anyways, because I stumbled across that, and I like on X you do your hypothetical. When I start putting out content in 2029 of my Apostles' Creed and chill, I think that's one of the things.
Apostles' Creed bar. Well, it started out as Apostles' Creed bar and grill. Like I imagine this mythical place where like some tiki bar where TLC dudes could just like go and hang out. If somehow we all lived in the same place, and I was gonna like have that vibe for like a stream. And anyway, because it's a stream and not real life, it was gonna be Apostles' Creed bar and chill.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the idea. But the only reason I push it back is I have 2 young kids and I'm trying to like renovate a house, and I am not tech savvy. Anyway.
Well, that's the how you've got 2. How old are your youngest? You got a 2-year-old and 1-year-old? Is that what you got?
He'll be 2 August 1st. And then my daughter's 4.
Okay. Yeah, dude, 10 years. 10 years you'll have some time to create your bar and chill.
And I won't be as retarded as I am now either. Just a couple more years. Some more viral tweets. But yeah. No, that's the idea. And so I'll just keep shooting hypothetical ideas until it actually happens.
Well, I mean, but I like the meme though. I mean, that to me is, I think when I was talking to Brendan Graham Dempsey a long time ago about metamodernism, and I was talking about the corner, I was kind of like, there's obviously there's Jewish people in the corner, and I was like, but there's also, so on the Christian thing, what about people that are universalists, and what if you're not, and all these, and I was like, well, I mean, there's kind of like this, I reference the Apostles' Creed, like, can I sit with a group of people basically and say, I confess, I believe these things. And not only because they're real, that they happened historically, I believe them because in a certain way they happened in my life. And so, I mean, that I read one of the few little books I've read, I'd recommend to a lot of people. It's Sam had him on his channel a few months ago, 6 months ago. He's was a Christian apologetics guy. Alistair McGrath wrote a book or a series, but a book called Faith and Creeds. It's real thin. And I read that a long time ago, and it really gave me a deep sense of, I don't know, it helped me believe that how important, I guess, the creeds, and specifically like the Apostles' Creed, really is for the church, to confess together, but even as an individual, or to teach your kids as a type of catechism. I've done that. So I think that's good.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things. So like wherever I end up, the reason I'm Anglican basically is because I'm pretty traditional, but the other two branches, Catholic and Orthodox, are a pretty big jump to make, especially if you've got a family. Anglican's an easier sell. Like, you get apostolic succession, you get real presence. I know this sounds like marketplace Christianity, but let's be real, that's what we're living in, baby. But also, I mean, it wasn't like I just picked it out of a hat. The church, and this all fed into there. What also feeds into it is friends of ours started going there, and it's a good church, and it checked certain boxes. But the reason why I haven't more heavily considered the other, like Orthodox or Catholic, although I did hang out at the Orthodox church for like a year in Reading. While I was in Reading, my wife and I were just sort of like not quite catechumens, just hanging out. Those are obviously bigger jumps, and if I ever did that, it would just be like, this is what I am. So if I go to a town when it's a crappy Catholic church, too bad, bud, you're still a Catholic, Yeah. So the Anglicans allow sort of a middle way. You can just kind of hang out, take communion. You probably have to join if you want to like baptize your kids or get married there, for sure. But in many ways it is a middle way, even if the way I just described isn't the official via media as Anglicanism is known for. But that's why I'm comfortable there right now. It's a good local church for us. It gives me tradition, and it allows me to be a mere Christian, kumbaya Christian is the meme I go for, which Matt C turned me on to.
Yeah.
There's another fantastic
follow.
Really Twitter. Good guy. Kyrie comic. He's a comic author, and Kyrie's awesome. But anyway, he just has this kumbaya vibe of like, it's all kumbaya, which sounds so cliche. Like, it is like the cliche, like kumbaya, all can just get along. But he's like, no, really, like, let's find what we share in common and just focus on that. And so in my kumbaya Christianity, like, as I just think in my head of like, what could actually unite? It's like at a very mere Christian level, probably the Apostles' Creed and Scripture as Word of God, those two things. But
yeah, definitely. The thing that was coming to my mind with Matt C's Kumbaya meme is Grimm has a branding he does of that campfire from, I guess it was the Northwest Estuary meetup. A bunch of dudes are at, like, literally, I mean, that was literally happen. It was being embodied in a sense, and which, if you're still following along in the conversation, don't forget Midwest Estuary. There's a South Estuary. Nate Hiles kind of helping head up, and then the Midwest Estuary with Peugeot and Vervaeke and Roger and Paul Vanderclay. Plug. I'll put the clip.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Midwest Estuary. I'm very excited about it.
Did you go to the Northwest, or have you been?
I haven't been to anything. I think I was in Illinois when they did the first Chicago one a few years ago, and I must have been just busy with stuff.
What has been how long have you been kind of aware of this PVK subculture, Paul Vanderclay subculture?
From very early on. I was probably like second wave, so I wasn't like very beginning of like YouTube commenters. Like, I didn't join the Discord right when it came alive, but like second wave of, or second gen Discord people. I was there.
What age? What years are we talking? What year is that?
Probably like 2018, dude. Maybe 17. I don't know. And I've actually met Paul. Because I was in Reading, which is 2.5 hours away from Sacramento, and so my wife and I drove down there one night for their meetup and met Paul and all those guys, and it was really nice to meet everyone. Rick is real. And then I when I went to the Jordan Peterson like talk that he did in Sacramento, I also saw a tall Dutchman several rows up walking across. So yeah, I've seen him in real life. But yeah, I've been around for a while, and I've been like in and out of Discord. I mean, because unless you find like a small pocket in Discord, like it is hard, or voice chat, it's hard. But but Twitter has just been my main. I've been on and off there too, but you hang out on there a while and just kind of like speak your mind and then make a couple buddies. And I don't recommend it to everyone, but in my little like niche season of life, I do not pretend to not enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how these, I've, at least in the last year and a half, I feel like I've seen a shift into X. And I think it is like, I mean, it's been the post Elon Musk buys X era of TLC, I think is different than the pre Elon. You could maybe tell me.
Sure.
And there was almost a hesitancy even still. Like, I think people forget what the vibes were like even like 2 years ago on X. It's a very different vibe. And there's there's also there was this weird thing after Elon bought X. I felt like for like 9 months, it was just kind of like there was a lull, and just the people that hung out, it just kind of was like there was, everyone's left to go to Blue Sky or whatever. And then everyone started trickling back in, and now they're like, it's been an interesting thing. I think I was thinking about that today, about how we just forget, even with the Peterson quote unquote hate that goes on in these spaces or whatever, how contentious that time was. Like, to have, it was just it's so radically different. It feels like on the internet, at least for if you were really interested in some of those ideas. But man, I'm only going to listen to people talk about it. I'm not dare going to, like, that's again part of that agency that I think is real, related to some of that. And whether or not because everyone just thinks, oh, if I post something, then I'm going to lose my job the next day. However, like, it's really, if you post something really intense, like, and then what comes to mind is Candace Owens. Like, how much did she want to get canceled? Like, at this point, you're like, oh, maybe she kind of wanted that, But I think that it is an interesting time, and the thing that has been, I feel like I've seen, I wanted to take this way back into the conversation, actually, is like, I felt very kindred to how you were saying you grew up, like, in this kind of I was in the charismatic church for like total of probably 4, 5, 6 years. My dad was kind of charismatic, but it wasn't in like the cool, like, whenever this whole whatever wave of post Hillsong, Assembly of God, and Bethl wave of charisma, like, there's something before that, before it was kind of like it
was like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I was kind of in that realm of charismaticism. But then once the modern worship culture took shape, it was like, well, I mean, the Baptists can sing what the charismatics are singing. The charismatics are singing what the Baptists are singing. Kind of like the Presbyterian Baptist relationship with theology and stuff. But like, but just listening to your story, I was, there was like a kindred nature to that. And I was thinking, you posted that picture of you posted one of your downtown clock, like, to me and Kale. And then you also did one of like, just like a Midwestern field, like, this could be the Shire, or this could be, a hill in, the English countryside or something. It was like, it's an interesting thing about, I don't know if you have ideas or thoughts about like the relationships between small towns and cities, like, what's going on right now.
Yeah, I definitely resonated with what you said in that live stream, that the cities have swallowed up small towns. Because even as I go through my small town's history, it's well documented. All the industry that was here is just gone. And we had we had a college here that was Lincoln College, named after Abraham Lincoln, from like the 60s, 1860s.
Wow.
And it just recently closed. Our Christian liberal arts college closed. Like now we had a big weed plant that opened.
What a contrast.
I know, man. It's tough out here. We've lost, but in the middle of the century, where Cale says the bodies are buried, is where stuff went down. You know, post World War II, like watch Mad Men if you've never seen it. Like it dramatizes and documents the decaying, the subtle, gradual decay of culture, and it has to do with like consumerism and propaganda as marketing became an industry, a huge industry, advertising, and like just serving mammon. Like I wonder if, like, as we search for like what's the smoking gun here, like what's the culprit for how we got here, if part of the reality is like, guys, all my family has been here for a long ass time. Like the street my grandmother still lives on, that whole block was just family members of hers. My dad would visit a house here or there every once in a while. I have been to another house on that block 0 times. So like all my lineage and ancestry is still here. You want to know like my connection level to all that? Like it disintegrated right in front of my eyes, you know? So it's like, but you know, why is that? Is it just because, you know, time and distance and I'm not as related as my grandma or my dad was? Sure. But part of it is just like our ancestors just sold meaning for privacy and more money. Not maybe our actual ancestors, but like our people, you know, the post, like, there's no reason to blame a particular generation. You know, it's just growth of technology and more wealth. It's like, what if there's no big bad guy at the top? It's just like, you know, we just wanted more comfort, more privacy. And so we gave up because your most meaningful, cohesive moments in life in our world are not, I mean, maybe it's a family vacation, but it's probably like when you're reaching out to your family for help, like postpartum. It's probably when disaster strikes. Like I heard you talk about that a bit today too. It's like, it's probably when, even like on a mission trip or something like that, you know, it's like what makes your group is that you are not everyone else. You are not at home. So we gave away the conditions it takes for cohesion. And I
quit believing it. We quit believing it. and even to your Mad Men illustration, you know, that last scene is like the hippie movement, Coca-Cola, and like, I guess Don Draper's just kind of like, fuck it. You know, like, this is it. You know, like, what am I just?
Well, what's
go ahead.
Weird about that, the last scene is that his breakthrough, his transformation leads to a marketing campaign to make Coca-Cola even more of a monopoly. And it's not like Coca-Cola is a great product. Like, yeah, it tastes good, but it's like, that's what it led to. That was the fruit of it. Is whatever transcendence and transformation, the culture that Don Draper lived in, which was the 60s, the 70s, the fruit of that culturally at the time, like the telos was to feed the beast, to feed the machine, to feed big corporate daddy. Like that was it. Even then, you know. Now,
yet it was using the hippie free love, like against the man image.
Yeah.
Those pictures I posted of those families, that was my mom's family on X. Of the my grandfather he worked for Lifeway, which used to be called the Baptist Sunday School Board in Nashville. And that picture of that black and white picture of all those kids around was used as on their publication that was sent to like every Baptist person in America, Southern Baptist person. The time, kind of like the banner, but bigger.
Yeah.
Because they had a high rise downtown Nashville. That was their publishing house. And he was basically, he had a team like Don Draper of people that were doing And I have a picture of them on like American Airlines steps, like going into a plane. My grandfather's leading a team of like 8 or 10 men that all look like madmen doing that thing in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then the other picture was 10 years later of my my aunts and uncles and my mom, like after the hippie revolution. And and none of his sons became ministers or did ministry, and the daughters all went to LA and worked in Hollywood. And like my mom was like, went to Baylor and was like, I don't know what to do. You need to quit paying for my thing. She just dropped out of school because it was like, like it all disintegrated. And yet there are these pieces of tradition that that were bound into their family through that kind of hyper traditional culture that they were presenting that still made it through. And I sat down with my daughter today, and we were like, my in-laws have a pool that they've kept going since my wife was in high school, in like elementary school. It's like amazing that it still works as good as it does. And like my kids are swimming with their cousins, and I'm just like telling my daughter, who's 15, I'm like, this doesn't happen by accident. And like what you are, this fruit that you're like, that we're experiencing right now is, it's intentional because a man made a decision to not be like his father. And then like, and he built a life for his family, and they created something stable that was built on their faith. And it's like, I can't even just, I wasn't really saying that, but I wasn't telling her what I was told and what you were probably told. Hey, go get a degree and be whoever you want to be. I was telling her, like, you should try to like keep this alive.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to say that. And there's a certain aspect where kids are going to go and do, and prodigal or not prodigal and all this kind of stuff, but maybe consider that this is something like, my dad still owns 100 acres of the 1,000-acre farm that my grandfather bought after he sold the mine after World War II. And he, like my aunt and uncle, sold off the back 300 and took their inheritance, right? And my dad held on to the land for ill or for better. He held on for this little piece of land that I take my kids to, once or twice a month, and we ride a go-kart, or we go four-wheeling, or we walk in the creek, and I sit there, and it's just kind of, you look out on this landscape, and I'm just like, and he held on. He knew that there was something and he, from the porch of the house that his great grandfather and grandfather built, and his dad built, or my great grandfather and my grandfather built, that I was raised in, happened to move back to restore that house when I was 7. We moved from Nashville and Fort Worth. And I just am like, there's something here that's worth preserving. Like if I don't help preserve these bits right here, then it does go away.
Yeah.
Like that last, like 1,000 acres goes to 10 and 5, it's gone. And it's like, and the way that that's done best is through family or through adoption. And my dad was adopted from South Korea. So how weird is that he's the one holding on to this farmland? But to point, like, that's now seen as, oh, you're talking about, you look at this, the Trump family thing, and it's like, that's wrong that his family benefits from his work. And there's something to that I like, whatever nepotism, like, I understand the abuses, or like people don't like that kings and their sons with no merit did this X, Y, and Z, or whatever. But there's something else there too. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. It's kind of,
yeah, and I haven't forgotten your point about cities and small towns either. But
sorry, I kind of
I think it's like, if you're gonna go the hardcore like Christian route, like telos, and just live out, forsaking the world, like that's fine. Like, and
like that priestly act or that monastic.
Yeah.
Or
like to be
missionary.
some sort of monasticism, whether that's actual or
missionary.
like yeah. But if you're going to have a conversation and sort of like dismiss what you're saying, but then have other opinions, political opinions or opinions on the culture or civilization, I don't think you can do that, because the whole reason you have civilization is because families and tribes linked up and started a thing emerged. Like that, the basis, the thing that keeps it alive is families. And obviously that has a very like what we would view as a dark side if you just look at any sort of archaeological record from like the pre-Christian era. But what we know as civilization is, and Peterson pointed this out early on, is a miracle. Like it's a miracle that we're talking and that things run well, that I'm not really worried about anyone breaking in tonight. I'm in a small town, like my car's unlocked.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty impressive. And I mean, there's a lot of dark things to point out for sure, but like just, like I flush my toilet and it just goes somewhere that's maintained. Like I turn water on, it gets hot. If something goes wrong, I can call. Like these things are miracles. Like, but the basis of that, what we've forgotten, and if you're going to have opinions on that, is you have to be pro-family, what you're talking about. And it's like, if I were to have, so I'm in a position right now. Technically I'm an electrician. It's not my favorite topic in the world because I don't like spend every day joyfully wiring crap up.
I'm a nurse, dude. I talk about it like 3% on this channel.
Yeah. Yeah. You get it. You pay the bills, you do your job as a man, and then people say, how's work going? And you go, oh, I guess I'll give you a little bit, but I really don't want to talk about it. So I work at a very small company. There's like a handful of guys who work there, maybe a couple handfuls part-time. Just started up by my boss's dad, and then his two sons run two branches of the company, and he kind of oversees it. So I'm in a super nepotistic environment, and I receive, they treat me well, but I'm not a son.
Yeah.
I could get bitter about that, because if I was, would I have the ability to do what they're doing? Yes, I could. I would have to work longer hours. And like, if he called me up and like, it's a very patriarchal thing. Like they obey their dad, if he wants an errand done at 7 p.m. or to go make a bid or whatever. But they do well. They do very well for themselves, and they treat their employees well. But my point is, like, I could just look at my position and my ceiling, because it's not very high. It's a small company, very small, and get bitter. Or I could just go, dude, that's how it is. Like if you had because they also, his sons aren't bad guys either. They treat their workers well too. So it's like, if I had a business and sons, and my sons were good guys, if I were to like grade all my employees on paper, would my son score the top? Even if he was good enough, obviously I'm giving the business to him. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you can't say that as a Christian, just like as a basic matter of fact, obviously that's not like that's just basic 101, just human acting,
But there's a narrative where that's seen as, and there's like a conversation. It's like, well, that's his effing son. Like there's a thing that's seen as a very negative thing.
Yeah, and I think it gets at what you're pointing at, which is maybe liberalism is the wrong word, but just some sort of weird identity breakdown virus in the air that looks at that and goes, that's wrong. And this gets at what I felt was a bit of a Rorschach test.
Because it's not fair. It's not fair or quote unquote just, right? If he's not the best, it's not a meritocracy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that gets into like just like private property though. And I don't even mean from like a John Locke perspective. I mean, just like, even like the Catholic tradition, like, Pope Leo the current, named after the 13th, and not Norvis Ordo, the new thing. What's the Latin for new thing? Anyway, whatever, the main Catholic social teaching document, Latin for the new thing, was written by the 13th. It's a really easy read. I'll find it in a second. Anyway, it's a very simple name. I just can't think of it right now. But it lays out just a basic defense of just like if humans can't own their stuff, then what, like there's no civilization. But obviously the Christian ideal, this is a Catholic document, right? So they're saying this just for like, countries as amidst the Industrial Revolution. But obviously in their tradition, their ideal is still a monastic who gives up all property rights. You can have both. You can have both speeds. And this is, I think, specifically like when people say Protestant and they critique something, a lot of times they mean evangelical, but it's like early reformers look at their like liturgy and Mariology. But what I'm about to say, the whole not understanding the two-speed religion thing and the difference between like the standard, like the good and the ideal, is really a Protestant weak spot for sure.
Yes, 100%.
And even I'm an Anglican, so they tried to take. People will look at a map at all the monasteries that closed after Anglicanism sort of took root. And there's two sides to that story. I mean, English monastics were pretty corrupt at the time, but they did throw the baby out with the bathwater. But what they did is they took the monastic lifestyle, you're praying every 3 hours, and then did it like twice a day. And it was like a family village thing. And so like literally my church, before my former priest moved away, and now we're searching for a new one, every weekday morning and evening was 7:30 and 4:30, 7:30 and 5:30, morning and evening prayer, just like 15-minute liturgy. There's scripture reading, some prayers, some creeds, maybe a psalm, just a basic like little prayer liturgy. But it's a distilled version of what would happen in a monastery for like hundreds of years. But it's the idea is that, we're going to bring it for everyone for the village. And there's a good thing to that. But society and the church, there's something to that two-speed principle. Like having these guys are out there going, like living the ideal. They gave up all property rights and the right to a spouse and all this stuff. And, but that doesn't negate the good of family life and property rights. So I say all this to say, with the whole bringing up the Catholic social teaching, that there's something in the air that just says any of that, any prop, or like too much ownership, too much nepotism, too much tribal pride, like, or I guess too much of it is bad, but any of it is bad. And and Pajot is really hinting at this, and it's uncomfortable for him to talk about because I think he's right, and like I said, like my work situation is uncomfortable. It's like, will I be there forever? No. And that's my prerogative. And it's because my ceiling's only so high,
Well, and to that point is like, well, what if you did go independent at some point? And do you have a son? Did you say you had a son? And like, what if, like, because you saw that pattern, like, well, I would actually want that for my son. If I had created something successful, or to whatever degree that is, and I could share that with him, and we could partake in this thing together and protect it together. Like that scene, there's like you said, it's almost like where any of that is wrong. And I think that, and so as a result, like you shouldn't want your kids to have, there's a flattening there. And even to the point when you were talking about two speeds, and I think I heard Kale mention that exact phrase today on the stream, but the thing about that is, when you come from the evangelical kind of mainstream church, American culture, you can throw parts of charismaticism in there, is okay. Well, at least in the kind of the loosely reformed Baptist evangelical world, it's like the preacher will get up and be like, you're looking for that ideal from this guy, right? But then that guy will say, but I'm probably the chief of sinners in here, or I'm just like you, and that's a confusing thing, because I think we don't want perfection from that office, but we do want something more than us from that office.
Yeah.
You know, that, and that complete flattening you're talking about is a problem, I think, related to that.
But it also plays into your whole subsidiary thing also, which is a breakdown of identity. Like, even if you look at like a far right movement like Nazi Germany, that also collapsed local identity, which is why no one knows the country of Bavaria. Like, you might if you're familiar with German heritage or something, but like there's a reason it's not a country anymore, you know, or has a specific identity. I mean, it does if you go there, I'm sure, but not as, you know. But part of reclaiming that is unflattening the world. Is like you brought up the couple posts I've made from my hometown, where if I frame it a certain way, you can see it idealized. Like, you can be like, well, that's awesome. But it's like, dude, this is a boring ass town. People walk by it every day. And it's like, what is it? Is it that it's not as cool as how I'm making it to be? I'm not even making it that cool. I'm just giving a quick frame and saying, what is this? Is this an obscure Midwest town or something else? I'm trying to show
the Shire.
Yeah. I'm trying to say, like, we're not seeing things like as they are. And if we saw things as they are, if we saw the mundane the right way, and this is why like Chesterton is my guy, because he can just like talk about a tree for like two pages and be like, you're not seeing it. Like when you're on a walk at night and you see like 150-foot tree in the air, that should like rock your socks off. But it just becomes familiar, you know, it's just there. It's like, that's an incredible thing. It's like 120 years old. It shoots to the sky like taller than any building would have shot up until like 5 seconds ago. Like, it's an amazing thing, you know? Or like when you see like imagine like, anyway, my point is to reclaim more of a local identity. I just think people have to be more okay with finding the transcendent in the boring, because there's a reason people like cities. Like, I have relatives who are like, oh, boring. Like, I got to be somewhere where there's a Top Golf. I'm like, well, that's the death of culture. Like, you know, like, if I'm sorry, there's not a Target nearby. And I mean, my wife jokes about this too. I'm not shaming anyone who thinks this way, but if you really do want to like have a local identity, you've got to play the card your dad's playing, where it's like, yep, until like I'm totally out, I'm not giving up this place, you know. Chesterton said Rome isn't loved because she's beautiful. She's beautiful because she's loved.
Yeah. I couldn't see it when I was a kid. I couldn't see it. And I'm starting to, you know, man, I think that's a great way to end this conversation. I'm thankful you decided to come on and share more of your story and kind of, I don't know, reinforce the pattern or continue it, like to kind of, I don't know, understand something that happened in culture. And we shared that conversation together, and look forward to continuing to see you on X and at Midwest Estuary coming up in August. So with that, thanks, man. We'll close this thing out backstage, and I'll hang around for the information about Midwest Estuary.
Midwestuary 2025, August 22nd through the 24th in Elmhurst, Illinois. A weekend you won't want to miss, with special guests Cale Zeldin, Paul Vanderklay, Rod Dreher, Elizabeth Oldfield, John Vervaeke, and Jonathan Pajot. Midwestuary 2025, the Fellowship of the Spirit. Stay tuned for more details. Visit us at midwestuary.com for ongoing updates.
Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud.